If you're interested in moving to France and getting a French visa, but you are not retired and you don't have any family members to bring you to France, we got you. Hi, I'm Lauren.
And I'm Scott.
And today we're going to talk about the visas that we considered applying for when we were moving to France and the visa that we actually decided on. There are a variety of French visas out there, and so many of them we could have potentially considered, but none were the exact right fit for what we were looking for. Since we shared that we were moving to France, people have been asking us pretty nonstop what kind of visa we decided to go with, if they even realized that we needed a visa to get here. Which is totally understandable because there are a lot of different visas that you could apply for to move to France, but not every single one of them was a good fit for our situation. So we're gonna go over a few of the common ones that we've heard, a few that people have asked us questions about, and then we're gonna ultimately tell you which visa we ended up with. The first thing I wanna talk about is neither of us have any EU citizenship. We don't have an EU passport of any kind. I got a lot of questions about, hey, did you guys do this through family? Do you have an EU passport? Is that how you're able to move to France? No. There is a marriage and partnership visa that you could potentially get, but obviously our marriage does not qualify for that. We are both United States citizens only. And additionally, there are some ways to get to France permanently through family reunification, but neither of us have family members to be reunified with in France. I think some of the confusion and some of the questions around this come from the fact that there are other countries in the EU that do allow you to bring grandparentage and other kinds of family relations to get a form of citizenship. I personally do not have those connections, and neither does Scott. My family does have ties to France, and actually not that long ago, but France just they don't do that kind of reciprocity. So yeah, we didn't get it by marriage. We didn't get it through family. That was not an option for us.
A visa that I considered was the talent visa, specifically one for artists. The talent visa is meant for painters, sculptors, people doing fine art generally. And although I work with printmaking and have previously done etching and screen printing, my current body of work wasn't aligned with this visa. What I was doing in my business prior to living in the United States was more aligned with an artisan. Here, artisans are considered those that create work for wholesale and also for commercial activity.
There's also a business talent section under the talent visa, but it required a 30,000 euro investment, pretty penny. And I actually wasn't sure if my business would qualify for that at all. I do know some folks who have been able to get the talent visa for content creation and brand deals and all of that. Your girl is not consistent enough with content and not confident enough that I would be able to meet the minimum requirement to stay in France through content alone. So that was out for me.
I will say also that applying for a talent visa is a little bit more rigorous in terms of the requirements, just generally, because there are some tax advantages depending on the particular type of talent visa you apply for. Additionally, I did not apply for the talent visa for artists because I'm currently not showing, or wasn't showing at the time, any work in galleries and exhibitions, which is recommended for applying. There is also an option for short-term visitor visa that allows you to stay for 6 to 12 months. And this particular visa does not offer an option for permanent residence. And obviously, the main reason that we didn't want to apply for this visa is because we wanted to stay for longer than a year.
Just so we're clear, at this point, from the United States, you can come into France and other EU countries and stay for 90 days, so 3 months, without getting a visa. The short-term visitor visa, like Scott said, is for 6 to 12 months, but it does not have the same option to renew from the EU. Specifically, we're talking about from France. So some people make the mistake of selecting that visa and thinking oh, I have a year-long visa, which is true, but you cannot stay here to renew that visa. You have to go back to, in our case, the United States, and once again, apply for a new visa. The short-term visitor visa is often confused with the long-term visitor visa, which is a 12-plus month visa. So that is what is shown on the visa website. Originally, when we started talking about moving to France, we thought at least one of us would be applying for a long-term visitor visa because it is pretty much the most common one we had heard of. And there are other categories under it that we will talk about right now, but neither of us ended up applying for that. One that is really common under the long-term visitor visa is the retirement visa, or a retirement visa, which there isn't a specific retirement visa for France. So if you are retired, you end up applying for the long-term visitor visa, 12 plus. Obviously, neither of us are retired, and unfortunately, we don't have retirement money to live off of.
Another reason that we didn't apply for the long-term visitor visa is because we wanted to make sure that we were legit with France. France is not one of the countries that has what's called a digital nomad visa, but a lot of people end up coming here and working from their computers under a visitor visa. And although people do it, it is kind of a gray area, but we wanted to make sure that we were doing this in a way that allowed us to potentially stay here beyond our first year.
So the visa that we ended up selecting for both of us was the Profession Liberale entrepreneur visa, which is still under the heading of a long-term visa. It's just a specification underneath it. The reasons we selected this were a little bit different between our businesses because we both have very different business models. So I will start by saying that I have been running my business online for 5 years, and I had no plans of changing it when we moved. I think what Scott talked about, the gray area of working on a regular long-term visitor visa, I probably could have gotten away with that because I entirely work from my computer. So I really could work from anywhere. But also, like Scott mentioned, we were not interested in dabbling in the gray area for our first time abroad. We wanted to be a little bit more legit, to have a little bit more clear-cut path for our visa renewal. So I think that's why we both selected to do Profession Liberale.
For my work specifically, when it comes to selecting the Profession Liberale, another factor was a lot of my work was done manually and with the assistance of equipment that I couldn't readily bring to France without figuring out a lot of logistics. At the time, I was already considering shifting away from doing that because of the amount of manual labor involved, and also just because it's a lot easier to work from your computer as opposed to having to set up an entire studio and figure out all the logistics involved with that. The Profession Liberale visa acts as kind of a catch-all for all unregulated activities. So obviously, under this visa, you can't be something that is regulated like a doctor or a construction worker, a therapist. For my application, I ended up playing into the strengths of the business that I already created and decided that I could continue doing those here in France. The business activities specifically that I chose to do were graphic design and hosting events. Both of these are still art related, but they are not doing fine art, which again would be a different visa category.
As I mentioned, I've been doing my business online for 5 years. I teach fitness, but it is not one of the regulated things under Profession Liberale that would disqualify you. I do have certification. I know those certificates don't necessarily transfer, but France didn't really care about that. I think people are surprised when we tell them that we chose this visa because it does make us tax residents pretty much immediately in France, which I think people try to avoid for as long as possible. For us, that definitely wasn't the case. I think there are so many benefits of paying into the system that we are getting from living here, so it felt fair that if we were running our businesses here, if we are living here, we are using those systems, why wouldn't we want to pay taxes? I will say also that the United States and France currently have a tax treaty. So we will still be paying taxes in the United States as well as France. We'll see how it goes. We don't know. We haven't done this before. I'm sure it'll be shocking, but honestly, being a small business owner in the United States and paying my taxes is always kind of shocking.
Also, the United States is unlike a lot of other countries where they tax based on your citizenship, not your physical location. So regardless of whether or not you're in the United States, so long as you're a citizen, you will be having to fill out that tax form. We did make the investment to have somebody consult us on setting up our business here in France to make sure that we didn't miss anything. And after quite a while waiting for paperwork, we were finally at the point where we set up all of our online accounts and are just ready to make our first tax declaration. So as we figure that out, we will definitely be sure to update you on upcoming videos.
No matter what visa you choose to apply for to get to France, you are going to have to do a lot of research and a lot of paperwork. One thing about it is they are not necessarily streamlining this process for everyone. It's not really easy to find everything you need for the specific visa that you're applying for. And even if you do, you might get there and it could be a surprise. If you are interested in hearing about all the paperwork we brought to our visa appointment and everything we did up until that point to get our visas accepted on the first try. You can stay tuned for our next video where we are going to go line for line and tell you everything that we brought to our appointment.
As always, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below, and please like, share, and subscribe so that we can continue talking about this experience and share it with other people who are interested in moving to France.
Okay, bye. Are you not old and want to move to France? Yeah, you can see it.
Yeah. Does the crippling dread of late-stage capitalism make you want to leave the country?
Just don't lift your arms. Are you taking that away from me?